Give us the chuck.
Of course. And okay, we're online. Okay. Welcome to another podcast of Giochi in Tavolo. And I'm Riccardo Scaringi, and this evening, this afternoon, we have two very special guests. First, let me introduce Diogo Nogueira from Brazil, now based in Stockholm. Diogo is the founder of Old School Publishing and the creator of games like Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells, Solar Blaze and Cosmic Spells, Dark Streets and Darker Secrets, and Primal Quest. In 2021, his adventure Halls of the Blood King, Le Sale del Re Sanguinario in Italiano, won the Gold Annie Award for Best Adventure. His design philosophy can be summed up in four words, his words: play more with less. Simple rules, dangerous magic, and doubles for everything. So you can spend less time preparing and more time playing.
Yeah.
And just a few weeks ago, a few months ago, Diogo made a big move. He joined White Wolf as a lead game designer. In his own words, like a good anarch, I joined the Camarilla. Diogo, welcome to the show. And Diogo, welcome. And with us today, and as so many times before, is Mauro Longo, a familiar voice on this podcast, and one of Italy's most prolific game designer. He's the co-creator.
Because I have three sons, three children, you mean?
So you need money. He's the co-creator of Brancalonia, Lex Arcana, Inferno, Dante's Guide to Hell, Ultima Forza, and Tropicana, among others. Mauro, welcome back.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the pressing on Diogo. Diogo, when you were a child in Rio de Janeiro, you dreamed of having a velociraptor as a pet. Cats and dogs seem too ordinary for you. You collected every dinosaur sticker, every magazine, every book you could find. And decades later, you created worlds where humans fight alongside dinosaurs. Where space rangers are literally dinosaurs saving the galaxy. So I had to ask you, Diogo, when did you realize that dreams of that boy from Brazil could become games that thousands of people around the world would play?
Oh, I don't know thousands, but yeah, I think it was about 2016 or something that I started publishing my games more like professionally, and people from other parts of the world started responding and talking to me about it, and seeing other creators who have inspired me, hearing about the games and to come and talk to me about them, and I started seeing reviews in like Korean in languages that I couldn't understand anything. So I was like, wow, my stuff can reach people from all around the world. I can connect to other creative people, even from the other side of the world, that I have no ways of talking to them. And once I met Philip Reed at a Gen Con, and he was the CEO of Steve Jackson Games, and complained to me that my stuff was too good for me to give for free, right? And I think that helped me believe a little bit more in my own work. When I saw someone that had made so much stuff connecting with me to say that they like my work, and then they should be more proud of it and charge more money for it. I think I started believing more that I could do this. I don't know, that I could do this more professionally. When I saw someone that.
Okay.
Which one, if I can enter in the discussion?
Please, Mauro.
Which ones were your first games? I can't find this information.
The first game I ever played?
No, your first game you wrote down and for selling, for publishing.
Oh, for selling, for publishing, for Sharp Swords Sinister Spells.
Okay.
I did write some stuff before, but never ended up publishing or selling it, because I had like I have a bigger plan for it, right? I wanted to make something like I wanted to start making something as big as DCC or Astonishing Instruments Source of Hyperborea by myself, and it was like, yeah, this is not gonna work, right? It is too much work for
Okay,
just one
just
person.
to give this information to our Italian audience, this is the Italian version of your game from Ganesha Games. So there are a lot of Jogos games translated in Italian, so our people, our audience can find them out. This one with the Ganesha Games, I don't know if it's still in production. I also have this one. I loved this one even more than that one, Lost in the Fantasy World.
Oh yeah.
And from Dungeoneer Game and Simulation, that is in Italian, an Italian publisher. Very nice, because it's like the very famous D&D cartoon, no? You know, when kids enter the Luna Park and some way enter in the fantasy world, and this is the game for that. Then I saw that I discovered that you created an adventure for this game of us, Golden Glory, years ago. It was not this one. This is the core book, but you did an adventure for this. And this is for it was GG Studio years ago. They didn't exist, doesn't exist anymore. And then for Ose, I know there are a lot of things from you. This one, the winner of the prize, the award, Le Sale del Re Sanguinario, another adventure in this anthology.
Yeah.
Very recent, very close to us in publications. I think three months ago, it arrived in Italy. So a lot of things. I have to ask you, because I love the OSR, the old school style, like you, I suppose. And also, I really feel a great envy for the name you find for your company, for your brand, old school, like the school, of course. That's genius. It's something outstanding.
Like a pun for the
yes,
name.
It's the perfect pun. And what do you like more in the old school? Why? I know, because I know why I love it, but why Diogo Nogueira loved so much this style?
I think for me, it's both the elegance and simplicity of it, and the willingness to try new things. Like I know a lot of people have this image of like the OSR old school. It's basically old school D&D, right? It's the BX, and that's it. But for me, the people I saw develop it maybe was more than, like people say, like the third wave of the OSR. They were experimenting more with like trying to keep the spirits of the game that's open-ended. It's challenging. It's very player-driven, right? It's not really about telling stories. It's about like making a sandbox, making a setting, like a play kit. Like I see adventures a lot as like play kits for, like, you know, Master of the Universe. You get the Skeletor Castle, and how you're playing with it. You know, like you don't have a story, but you put a bunch of stuff there and let players lose and see what happens. So I think what really attracts to me is how people try to keep the old spirit of being very adventure-oriented instead of being like story-oriented, being very personal, very gritty. It's not really about being powerful characters, right? Most of the old school play happens below 10th level, and the focus on what I say I like to do, like doing more with less. Like they give you a table, they give you tools, they give you a bunch of toys for you to play with, and not point you to a path and say you have to follow this path, right? They just it's very play oriented, right? It's very like kids, you know, just go out and do something with it. It's very punk rock in a way. Like you that's all you got. Go play with it. It's more important what happens on the table than outside of the table. Like characters don't have like a gigantic shit with thousands of skills and feats and precious classes and powers. They have very limited. Yeah.
Or a backstory.
what matters happens in play, not outside of play, and I think that's what really attracts me to it.
Diogo, in 2012, you discovered the indie role-playing game scene, and you said, and I quote, "I fell in love." 4 years later, you found the courage to publish, as you said, Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells. What was the moment like? That leap from dreaming to creating, what finally gave you the courage to share your vision with the world
I
as a
think
game
for me
designer?
was mostly the zine culture, right, that was erupting on that era, and especially with the DCC community. Uh, a lot of people were doing their stuff in their homes, in their basements, and just photocopying and sending it to people, sometimes for free, sometimes we would trade zines with them. So I started collaborating with some of the DCC creators. They're still doing their stuff and up to this day, right? So I made some art for them. I wrote a table here, like a monster there. And I saw a lot of people that were just like me, like they were fans and they were really excited about something and they just wanted to contribute in their own way, right? They wanted to collaborate and give their ideas shape so other people could play with them. And I think that's what helped me take out the leap. And by the same era, I found out this book by Alcin Cleon called Still Like an Artist, right? And for me, this book is really almost like a manual, a creative Bible of how to operate, how to be creative, how to work. And I try to follow it like a Bible, really. I try to do everything the book says, and it works for me. And sometimes I'm kind of stuck, or I'm feeling not as creative as I should be, or I'm feeling unproductive, or I'm feeling that I'm out of the groove, And I read that book again, and it kind of inspires me to keep going. I try to put those things in practice, remind myself of, just doing a little bit every day and just keep doing it and not being too worried about the results. It's more about, process and having fun with it. And that really reflected on the zine culture as well.
You once described old school publishing as, I quote you, a mask I put on to pretend to be something else and have the strength and courage to create. That's a powerful confession. Can you tell us
Yeah.
more about what old school represents to you and whether that mask has become your true face over the years?
Yeah, because at at Rio, no, when I was back in Brazil, right, I didn't work as a full-time creator, right? I had a day job, like most people in the industry have, right? So I graduated as a graphic designer. I worked a little bit on the field, on companies, on like marketing, but that really wasn't my thing. I didn't really wanted to work for other people. I always would get bored. They wanted me to make horrible things, right? As clients normally ask us to do. So I worked on a little bit of children's book too. I had some fun with it. I worked with some great people, but often I would have to illustrate horrible stories, and ended up doing became a public servant, and I became a tax collector in Brazil. And it was a very bureaucratic, boring job that I, had to do.
I understand you because
And
I'm in a bureaucratic job too. So
yeah, and I think having this carapace that you can put on and pretending you are a real publisher, you're a real thing, old school publishing. Uh, I don't know, gave me some kind of protection and some kind of legitimacy to make me believe I can do that, right? It's a lot like the book that I mentioned about Still Like an Artist says, fake it till you make it, right? Until you can do what you want to do, pretend you're doing it. Pretend this is for real, and one day it can be, right?
it become real.
Yeah, and it has become. I'm working full time with creating games now, which is amazing. Yeah.
Mauro, I
Okay, but I'm still on the old school topic because I love it so much too. Where my question could be, you experimented a lot at the beginning, probably still now,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you have to explain something peculiar of your games, not every one of them, let's say 3 of them. So why they are all in the old school label, they are all old school, of course.
Yeah.
Which are the difference between, for example, the SSSS and of your game? Primal, okay, it's about dinosaurs.
Yeah, Lost in the Fantasy World. We have
Lost in the Fantasy World,
Lost in the Deep too.
And then, of course, at the end of this, at the end in my vision, probably is not in your, but at a certain point you arrive at the two old school essentials. That is a sort of standard now in old school publications.
Yeah.
So, which are the differences?
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be very technical about it, I don't think all my games would fit in the what people call an old school game, right? Like a OSR game. For example, Lost in the Fantasy World is very more narrative driven than classic adventure game. I have a Lost in the Deep 2, which is like a solo journaling game, and I tried because I don't want to limit myself in making OSR games, right? I want to make a game with mechanics that serve the experience I want the player to have with that game. So my own games are never truly pure OSR games because I always have something related to narrative games that I like to, like as Fate, as Fiasco. Even like the tables I created for Sharp Swords Sinister Spells was my first game. Was really inspired by Fiasco, which was like a narrative, story-driven game, right? And I think what makes my games what they are is this very thing, right? I don't want to put myself in a box and say, oh, I'm gonna make a OSR game and then like a heartbreak fantasy game. I want to make a game that plays like I want to play a game. Like I make games for myself. That's what I always said. I make a game that I want to play that doesn't exist yet. So that's what I try to do. And sometimes that will lean more on the classic adventure fantasy games like D&D. Sometimes it will lean more towards a more narrative-driven game. I'm developing the second edition of Sharp Swords Sinister Spells, which has a lot of OSR and more procedure-oriented things. So it's gonna be I'm expanding it a lot, giving a bunch of tools. So it's going to be apparently the size of Solar Blades, but divided in 2 books. So it's a very traditional game, but with a bunch of collaborative narrative things to do too, as well, right? But I have another game in developing too called Petty Gods and Playthings, which is like a fantasy adventure game too in a city, but it's a lot more narrative than Sharp Swords. Like it's a lot more. You actually play as a god controlling mortals, so you don't have skills and attributes. Like you have your power, like your divinity, right? So you play more with destiny and stuff. So it's more about controlling the story. Like Destiny, you don't roll to see if you hit. Like Destiny, like you're supposed to and you narrate how that happens, right? So it's a lot more. You roll to how you tell the story instead of you controlling every single element that is in there, like a character in isolation from the rest of the world. Like you have influencing more stuff than that. So that's how I try to pick which mechanics to use and how to approach the rules depending on the game, right? For example, Kosmosaurs and Lost in the Fantasy World are kind of similar in some ways in how they approach the rules because they're more very simple, very this 6 mechanics and a lot of things that remind like a very simplified version of Fate, and they don't have very nitty gritty like hit points and stuff like this. Like you lose characteristics. It's a very narrative driven game instead of, because I wanted to make it more about how you tell the story, how you control the narrative, and like anyone can play, like a kid, because kids don't really count hit points. At least like small kids that I play, they just wanna, hey, I do this and I do that and this happens, right? So that's how I wanted to approach
So
that.
you are a new old school, let's say so, with a lot of different influences from the underground narrative story games.
Yeah, because I don't think there has to be a separation, right? I think
Absolutely.
yeah.
Diogo, let's switch for a little time to the art
Mm-hmm.
of crafting games because our podcast is in a way focused on the game design. No? You
Mm-hmm.
said play more with less. Four words that define everything you create. But what do they really mean when you sit down with a blank page and the infinite possibilities of a new game system? How does this guide your? How do these words, this motto, guide your hand when you're designing?
Well, one thing that I try to do with my games is instead of creating complexity through a bunch of different mechanics, I try to concentrate on few mechanics that interact with each other. So the complexity would be how those interact between them instead of having them expanding their own trees of things, right? And and since I am an independent creator, I don't have a big team. I don't have a lot of money to invest and buy people and hire people to do a bunch of supplemental material. I want to have a game that gives you tools to help you create your own stuff and help you come up with ideas. And the same thing as I'm an adult, I had a day job, kids, I had a wife, and I wanted to create more stuff, and I had friends. So how do I make a game that can be played by someone with a busy life, right? Because someone that doesn't have a time to sit down and prepare a full adventure, and I can spend a whole day preparing an adventure. So I wanted games uh, that have rules or mechanics that trigger things in the game that force you to deal with problems, like a self-feeding game, like that creates adventure opportunities for you playing them instead of relying on like a 90s or 2000s GM that has to create everything, has to create all these monsters, all these plots, all these locations. So
Hours
if
and
you
hours of, of preparation.
yeah. Yeah. And because old school play now, we tend to focus so much on or player-driven games and giving them agency. Having a game that provides you to create stuff on the spot and improvise helps with that task, right? Because if you have a game that requires you to spend too much time making a stat block for a monster, it's hard for you to improvise and create something on the spot. Like, oh, they don't want to go to the magic tower that I wrote. They want to go to the swamp. Okay, let's see what's on the swamp. And you roll table to see what happens. And you have to create a monster. You just need a number and a few ideas of abilities, and you get to go, right? You don't have to think of hit points, XP, saves, and all those stats that you normally have to think about. So I I think about that. Like it has to be something that has few rules you have to memorize because I don't want people to stop the game and look at the book to see what they have to do. Those mechanics have to integrate so they have impact on each other and they generate conflict. Because if you fail this, you trigger like you can activate your problem, and this gives the GM an opportunity to insert something that is important in your character into play and create problems for you. Like I like the players to participate in creating situations too, right? And not put everything on the shoulders of the GM. So collaborative building, simple rules, tools to improvise, and yeah, I think that's it.
Mm.
That's good.
In every game you've created, from Sharp Swords to Solar Blades to Dark Streets, magic is a double-edged blade.
Yeah,
Powerful, yes, but dangerous, costly,
yeah.
corrupting. You have said, correct me if I'm wrong, that mortals meddle with things they do not fully comprehend. Why is this philosophy so central to your work? Is there something deeper here, something about the nature of power itself that?
Yeah,
Hmm?
power corrupts, right? I I don't know. I grew up in South America, in Latin America, right? So we have this very strong vision that the powerful are corrupt, the powerful are manipulating things, and even like someone has good intentions, they get to power, they inevitably are corrupted by the system because that's how it functions where I came from, right? As I said,
Not only
I was a
there.
tax collector. Yeah, yeah, but there's very strong. I mean,
Okay.
I was a tax collector in Rio. I had to deal with corruption. I had to deal with death threats. I had to deal with a bunch of stuff that was very scary in a lot of ways, and I also like to see magic as something. It's not natural, right? Magic is not something that happens. Like humans can do magic. So if you're dealing with magic, you're dealing with something that's kind of inhuman. It's not natural for you, and it's gonna have some costs. Like I love D&D, but the very scientific nature that magic has in that setting, that you memorize something and you use it and it's done. It's very practical in game, right? You just mark something there and it's done, but it doesn't feel magical to me. Especially after years of playing the same game, right? It feels very predictable, and I want magic to be something that's unpredictable and dangerous, but it's also exciting and powerful, right? I don't want magic to be something that's like a cantrip that you do something and it's small and you don't have to worry about it. I want magic to be something that you have to think about it. Should I use this? This can be very powerful. This can help us a lot. But if you screw it up, it can, create more situations. And that builds in on the thing that I said about the rooms creating adventure situations by itself, right?
Okay. Mauro.
Nice. No, I'm interested actually in the Brazilian scene in role-playing games, of course. How about your your festival? Which games people use it to play? It's used to play there.
In Brazil, wow. There's a bunch
Okay,
of stuff
for
like.
your town, I don't know. Brazil
I
is
mean,
great.
yeah, I mean, it's hard. I don't think I play the same games as the majority of Brazilian people play, because I play indie games from around the world, right? I play some games that some of my friends create. I had a friend called Pedro Borges, which is a renowned author there in Brazil. He won a bunch of awards. He creates games inspired by Brazilian culture. He has a game inspired by like a fantastic uh, Northeast mythology in Brazil, which is kind of a religious-driven Brazilian Western, if I could describe in some way that would be
Awesome! It's awesome.
comprehensible to a foreign audience, and it's has a very strong graphic representation. So there's a lot of imagery. Has a lot of to do with Catholicism, but it has a lot of to do with cowboys. But it's different in Brazil than in the United States, right? Has almost this kind of caste hierarchy. You have the colonel, which is like the guy who owns the land, and you have minions, and you have bandits, and you have. So he created a whole fantasy mythology of this Brazilian religious Western, and made a game about it, and used the same systems to make other games. It's a D6 dice pool system, and but I have other friends too that has like a paranormal investigation game, but it's inspired by Brazilian culture and Brazilian bureaucracy and problems. So that's reflected in the game
They
too.
seems really nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's very varied, but I mean, the most played game in Brazil, it's one called Tormenta, and it's like our Pathfinder, right? It became popular after 3.5 and came 4th edition. Nobody liked it 4th edition, so they created Tormenta, which is their version of D&D. And now they have a new Tormenta that kind of simplified the rules and kind of is between 5th edition and 3rd edition. So
That fourth edition has given rise to in every part
Nobody
of the
lost.
world
yeah,
a new game. In every part of
4th
the world.
edition was great because it made people create awesome things. This,
Okay.
if like DCC is one of my favorite games, and they explicitly said, yeah, we created DCC because we didn't want to make stuff for 4th edition.
Yeah, it's nice. And then what about convention or festival? Do you have some nice
Yeah,
one?
we have the biggest Latin America convention happens in Brazil. It's called Diversão Offline, which would be like offline fun,
Mhm.
and it's a very big for everybody, both board games and tabletop. And we have like award shows there. People show up to play, to you know see
Well,
the new
in
releases and
Rio?
stuff in São
Where?
Paulo.
Okay.
Ah,
São
São
Paulo,
Paulo.
yeah. It will happen, I think, in July this year or end of June. I kind of want to go, but I don't know if I will have time because of development that we're doing on White Wolf and stuff. So, yeah. But it's a big thing, and we also have other popular games, like the same publisher that publishes Tormenta, since they're the biggest publisher there.
But
They
then
make
now you
now.
are in Europe, so you can attend to our European festivals.
Yeah. I
Germany,
wanted,
Italy.
I want to do that, but you miss home, right? You got a little homesick sometimes, and it's fun to go there because you spend so much time there. You wanna see your friends, you wanna see your people too. I miss hearing Portuguese on the street. Like
Ah,
I
no.
only I either listen to Swedish, which I don't understand at all, or English, right? So when I hear someone speaking Portuguese here, I almost stop them, saying, "Oh, are you Brazilian? Are you Portuguese? Let's talk. Let's talk for 5 minutes." I don't know.
Okay. Diogo, September.
So this is called
Okay.
saudade, mio amigo.
Yeah, saudade.
Saudade.
Yes.
Let's talk about an happier moment. The Annie Awards ceremony at Gen Con in 2021. They announced the gold winner for Best Adventure, and it was not the legendary Ben Milton, it was you.
Yeah.
Halls of the Blood King, Le Sale del Re Sanguinario. Uh,
Yeah.
a friend I read recorded you screaming in Brazil late at night. Is that true? With your wife by your side. Take us back to that moment. What did it feel like to have the industry recognize
Yeah.
finally what you created?
It was very surprising for me. I remember, watching the stream. I was with my wife and my ex-wife and a couple of friends that were a couple too, and I saw the second place was an Alien Adventure, right? And I was like, yeah, well, Alien second, Ben Milton obviously, got the first place. So I was like, yeah, that's okay. And yeah, when then I announced it, we all screaming. We were all just like jumping on the room, and like I couldn't really believe it, right? Uh, because yeah, I rarely publish adventures, right? Before House of the Blood King, I mainly published like rules and yeah, I had some adventure in the Solar Blades and Cosmic Spells, and some adventure frameworks and some other things, but never like a full book of adventure. Uh, so that was very, very cool for me. And I had adventures that I played with my friends that are like, oh, this is awesome adventure, but I never really codified that in a structure to publish. And I think the way old school extensions does that is very cool. It's very in the philosophy I have, like play more with less. Like you can actually run a OSC adventure almost without reading it before, because you open up and each room or each passage gives you exactly what you need to pay attention to, and that helped me develop the adventure more. And I've been, studying adventure for a long time, and I don't know, it was really incredible for me to see that and have people from around the world cheering for me, and I think the Brazilian community really helped it too, right? Because we spread the word around here that we had a Brazilian running to win something.
Everybody
And
voted it.
yeah, and I don't know if you know this about Brazilians, but we rally to each other on the internet. It's kind of a famous thing. Like if you piss off a Brazilian, it's depending on the thing that you do, you might draw a mob of people to to defend him or something, even if they don't know him. For some reason, at least on the internet, we take care of one another.
Um, you watched Primal on HBO Max, and something clicked.
Mm.
Within weeks, you had created Primal Quest. What happened in that moment of inspiration? How did decades of loving dinosaurs crystallize in 28 pages of pure
Yeah.
weirdstone and sorcery?
Well, I don't know if you know this, like but my first three games were all kind of something in sorcery, right? I began with Sharp Swords, it's like the classic sword and sorcery. I went to Solar Blades and Cosmic Spells, which was star and sorcery. And then I had Dark Seeds and Darker Secrets, which is like street and sorcery. And I have a bunch of ideas of other stuff and sorcery. Like Primal Quest is my stone and sorcery thing. I still have a few things I want to publish with. I want to actually develop like a big core book, compiling everything and publishing more adventures for it. But yeah, Primal made me want to do some, because I love the dinosaurs. As we said, we were talking in the beginning. Like I were always fascinated by dinosaurs. They're like awesome creatures. They're like real dragons, right? And they have so many different types and so many different roles and so many different things they can do and attack, and they fly and they swim. And around the same time that there was Primal, we had the Prehistoric Planets documentary series on Apple TV, and that's what kind of culminated me to want to try new things. Like I was developing a game called Sword Quest, which was a very simple, like a mixture of OSR with Fate, with other stuff that I wanted to do another kind of sword and sorcery game, trying these mechanics. And it just made me feel, wow, why don't I make it something? And I was reading a lot about, South American history too and prehistory. And I wanted to make a game that combined all this thing like sword and sorcery, dinosaurs, prehistory, especially,
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, so that's kind of stone and sorcery came about. And I know I love it, and I still have a bunch of plans for it. But I'm only a single person. I have to finish Sharp Sword Second Edition, but there's still something for Primal Quest in the works. I actually have about 3 or 4 games that are already written, but you have to develop and edit them.
Yes, of course.
I'm done with the past. I'm really okay with the past, and now I want to know something more about the World of Darkness, your new job, your lead in that industry, in that brand. Tell us whatever you can, of course, of the new, perspectives.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say much, but I mean, we are working. Yeah, we can't say much.
Of course,
about that. There will be announcements.
In all fairness, we don't have so many viewers in this podcast, so you can relax and give us some spoil, some.
There will be news in the middle of the year, but we are working hard. We're going to.
So I changed the question. How are you there now, and what do you feel?
Great.
What do you feel is a great change? I can imagine.
It's a great team. We're very dedicated. We're going to all of the editions. We're scoring the world. We're going through all the lore, all the rules, and we want to make it. We want to make it perfect. We want to restore the prestige the brand has, the world had, and we wanna bring it bring it back with style and then draw more eyes to it. And one of the philosophies we had is no AI for anything. You know, we want to make it very handmade in a way.
Yeah, this is
And
something that we all appreciate very much.
yeah,
From
one of the goals is like to honor the past but look to the future. You know, we want to honor all the things that World of Darkness meant and was like 30 years of, you know, plot and development. But we wanted to make it more like one of my principles. I was hired because that too, like make more with less. Like how can we give them more tools to play? Like I want to make, because if you look at the storyteller system World of Darkness, if you look at the role the storyteller has, it's a very 90s and 2000s role. Like you create everything, you create a story, you create a city, a bunch of NPCs, and you tell a story the players are on. And that's not how people play nowadays, right? People play
Were you a
very
player
clear.
in the 90s in vampires, werewolves?
Yeah. I played. I remember one of the first book I read in English was Vampire: The Dark Ages.
Hmm.
Right, it was the first book I read in English.
And
I
how does it
remember.
feel? How does it feel to you now to hold the fate of those worlds in your hands?
Well, it's not the fate of the world. I'm
Don't be
the
so much
game
humble.
designer. There is other people that are responsible for other things. Like there is uh, creative director. There's people that work more on the lore, and I'm more like we collaborate, of course, but it's not the whole thing. It's on me, right? There's a bunch of other people developing stuff. We all talk, but it's very exciting to be the person that's it's gonna you know leads on how the game may develop mechanically or develop for other lines. Because White Wolf is not only producing the RPG part too. It's also dictating how partners work with that, right? Like a video game or a board game, we will set the course of how they can do stuff, right?
What excites you most about the future of the World of Darkness?
I think how we want to really capture the feel of the game and make it really reflect on the rules and give storytellers and players tools to help them play more with less. Like we don't want to spending 2 hours making a character. We don't want you to spending a whole weekend preparing a story for your players to play. Like we want you to get the book, pick pick your things, make a character in like half an hour, and you want to you start playing. Like you pick things from the book, and you have something that you can run immediately and let it be more player driven than storyteller driven. And I think that's something uh, that excites me to bring it to and it's a new out, it's a new world, right? We don't have time to spend that much time creating something. You want to play, and the focus is on play and not something that you do outside of play.
Weird games and weirder people. You called it the first RPG podcast that's not about RPG. It's about the weirdness inside creators, about how we channel that strangeness into art. What does weirdness mean to you, and why is it embracing it so essential to creation?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I became very enamored and passionate about indie RPGs, right?
Mhm.
And very independent, that is very driven by what the author wants to do instead of what I normally call corporate RPG, which is like what I'm doing now. There is a corporation that owns White Wolf, and I have to follow principles and stuff that not necessarily is what I want to do inside. World of Darkness is not mine. It's everyone's, right? It's the company, it's the fans. So you can't change stuff because that's how you see that stuff for you. But in the indie RPG, it's very about you. Like I think it's inevitable that one day I will do my own vampire game because I'm working so much with this, and I was like, you know what? I will make my own, like Bender, like I will make my own vampire game with blackjack and hookers, or something like that. So
with something spells, sorcery inside it.
yeah. Maybe, but
That's an idea.
Yeah. But for me, the weirdness is about being, authentic and unapologetic, right? And we have so much of this in the indie RPG because since we know we don't have to conform to expectations of a huge fan base or this past of that many editions of the game that you have to respect. You are able to just, you know what? I want to make a game about. No, I've almost finished reading a game about you writing a dream journal, but you generate your dreams, like you create your own dreams inspired by the stuff that you had that you remember about your life. Because I don't remember my dreams, so I made a game for myself. Like I want to have a dream journal, but I can't dream. So what do I do? Oh, I know. I will make a game, a solo journaling game, that I fill the tables, a bunch of random tables about your life, with my own information, and I generate my dreams. So every person who gets the game will have to fill the game with their own memories, and they can generate their dreams without dreaming, without sleeping. That's a weird thing, right? I want to make a game about dinosaur space rangers.
Of course.
Who's gonna make that, and I think that's it. Like the weirdness is very about authenticity and playfulness and just being yourself. And I think that's what I want to explore on my podcast is how all these creative people, all these weird people, go out in the world and how themselves are reflected in the game, right? Because a lot of times when I talk to those people and I talk about their life, what they worked on, what they dreamed about when we were kids, how was someone was important for them as a mentor, things that shaped their life, and we always end up finding relations to the stuff that they make as RPG creators, right? So I think that's what I want to explore. I believe that by knowing those people better, you know their games better as well.
So if you were the guest of your podcast, please answer to your standard questions. In which way yourself reflect into the games you
Yeah.
design, and who has been your mentor, I don't know what
Model, sort of model.
Yeah,
your
yeah,
model.
yeah.
Your model.
Well, I think a lot of stuff reflects on my game. The stuff that my passions are, like the things I obsess with, like 80s and 90s cartoons. There's a lot of stuff there. Sword and sorcery, problems with corruption, with power structures, with authority. I'm not a big fan of organized religion. So usually organized religion in my games are
The bad guys.
bad,
It's a bad thing.
Yeah. I try to escape that, but I always end up, going that route. Yeah. And what else? Favoring simplicity and clarity and action instead of just a lot of lore. I want to focus on what happens now, and something that I struggle with because of anxiety. And what else?
Have you had
the mentor
a
thing.
mentor, yes,
Well, I had many.
or a model game designer?
Okay. Well, Jason Monster is someone that really inspires me. He's always making stuff. I think Alan Barr too, which was someone that I worked with him for a few years, and was one of the first publishers and first people from outside of Brazil that really saw my work and saw that I could do more and supported me and taught me a bunch of stuff, taught me about how to behave myself in the industry. I remember we're doing a work for another publisher one day, and he was more experienced, right? And so they wanted to pay him more than they wanted to pay everybody else, and he just said no. You either pay everybody what you're paying me, or I won't be doing the work. So he used his position to elevate others, and he has done this many times, and that was a really good example for me. You know, and yeah, people from
You
the DCC community too, who is always doing stuff no matter what. They're really not caring so much about if everything is perfect. The Gunk Farmers Almanac that would come out every Gen Con for free. People just collaborating and making wild things, and don't
you have,
listen so much to our inner critic. Yeah.
you have to know that the interviews with Ricardo, they always seems like kidnappings, so they can last for hours. So,
Just a few more questions.
okay.
Sure.
Please, Diogo, don't run away. You
Yeah.
mentioned you mentioned having a few completely written games waiting for publication. So, will old school publishing continue alongside your work
Oh
at
yeah.
Wolf?
Yeah. I talked to White Wolf Paradox, right? And was one of the first thing I asked when was being recruited for this, like, will I be able to continue doing my work on the side? And they said sure, because some of them have their own work too as well. So yeah, I have an authorization to have like a side jobs and doing my own independent work on the side too, as long as it doesn't uh interfere with my
Conflict
work
with
there. Yeah.
like the vampire game that
Yeah, I
you want
won't
to.
publish a vampire book now, of
Okay.
course, but
Uh, you said you want to use the Primal Quest line to bring talented Brazilian creators to the world stage. That's not just publishing, no?
yeah.
You are building a movement. What's your vision?
Uh, well, one of the things I wanted to do a couple of years ago was to create a publisher to get some of the games that I mentioned about that exist in Brazil that I think are really good and I think people should know about, and maybe translate them to English to publish them. Like the games I said about Pedro Borges or Jorge Valpassos too. It's also an amazing creator there. And that's one possibility that I have. Primal Quest, my idea would be I have an adventure that was one of my friends were developing for Primal Quest, but I had a bunch of edits that I sent to him, but he still hadn't worked on that. I had another American friend working on an adventure for that, and yeah, it's hard to work with other people, right? Because
Mhm.
you depend on them, and yeah, I don't know. One of the ideas I had for Primal Quest is like publishing a setting book, would be like the Pangaea, right, of the world, and having people from places that the Pangaea would be from, like from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, writing adventures inspired by their native people, legends and myths. So I would get people from Brazil to write about, our like tupi myths or like other native people from Brazil mythology. So that's one thing that I want to do, and work with artists from here, right? Like a bunch of artists that made stuff for Primal Quest are from here, and reflect more on the work.
Okay, we are in the final part of the of the podcast, and there's surely someone listening to this right now, to this podcast, and some of them are game designers or young game designers or wanna be game designers. Maybe in Italy, maybe in Brazil, maybe somewhere else entirely, who has a game burning inside them but hasn't found the courage to create it. You were that person once. What would you say to them?
just do it and don't worry about it so much. I think a lot of people worry about, oh, will my ideas get stolen? Will I get criticized? Will people like it or not? I think one thing that really drove me to, go out and just do it is this concept on Cyril Canard that says that the real difference is not between something that is good and something that is bad or not good. The real difference, like, you made something or you didn't make something, because after you make that, you can work to make it better, and your next thing will be better because you learned something about finishing it. So my advice is to start small. You want to make something like as I did. I wanted to make a big sword and sorcery 500 pages book. Uh, for my first product, that's very hard. So my idea is start small, start with the minimal viable version of that product that you can start with. See how you can reduce it to the essentials things and do that, and go for the next thing. Like if you want to do a setting, write an adventure, write a pamphlet adventure, like a one-page adventure, or create a monster, a faction, like NPCs, and build from there. Because when you set your goals and things like that to a small scale, once you finish that, you get a boost. Like, oh, I made something, I finished it, I can publish it, and put it out there, and see what's the next step. Like, I did this. What can I do next? Like for Sharp Swords Sinister Spells, for me, which was my first game that I published, I had the goal to make a game of up to 64 pages, has to do all these essential mechanics and these essential things. And I could write a lot more, but I just wanted to get this thing done. And once I finished that, like, what could I add to that? What could I put more? What could I provide more tools? And that came the Sharp Swords Sinister Spells addendum, right? Which is like a supplement for it. And after I did that addendum, like, what would be the next step? Well, I don't know. I can make a sci-fi version of that, and that's became the Sword Blades and Comic Spells, which is also like my sci-fi version of Dark Sun. My concept of the setting is like, what if Dark Sun was in space, and that's what I always try to do. Like I finish a project and say, okay, what from this I can do, and what did I forget? What can I explore further, right? Or take in a different direction,
Do you want what mark do you want to leave on this hobby with love, if any?
Mark, believe on what?
What mark do you want to leave on this hobby? What to be reminded?
Oh, to just be creative, worry less, and have fun with doing what you want to do, right? And connect around the table. One of the things that I really love about RPGs, especially nowadays, it's an activity that makes us connect with other people and don't isolate us in our devices, in our homes. And one thing that I really want to do is create mechanics and things that generates an artifact, generates something that you can live with you to remind you of that experience, right? Primal Quest has the cave wall painting thing that you end the adventure, you can do a cave painting with your group, and it's a collect activity, and then the session ends, and you have there to remind yourself what you did, And I want to explore more of the meta gaming, of gaming to sit around the table and have people by your side, and the social thing. So I think it is like it's a game for you to connect and be creative with your friends and worry less about being serious, about being good, about being perfect. It's just about having fun and experiencing something together and living with more than you came in, right?
I will give to Mauro the opportunity of the last question.
But actually, I'm really okay with this. I just noticed that you, Diogo, also I don't know if only at the beginning you created also your own art for your games. You are also an artist, a layout too, a layout manager too. Okay, you did everything by yourself in the
No, no, not all the games. Like some games I do the layouts and do some art. Some games I mostly write because that's other
maps.
thing too, right? Yeah, maps. Sometimes I do the sketch and ask for someone to make a final version of the maps. Uh, I don't know. I think it's just how I see what is fitting for that game. Like I started writing a book called Word of no, was the Seed of Adventure Alphabet that would write between writing other stuff. It's part of my Monster Alphabet and Dungeon Alphabet that I want to illustrate everything because I think that would be fitting. But like for Primal Quest, I want to have different artists. Like for Kosmosaurs, which is a game inspired by a cartoon, I wanted to have an artist that had a more aligned style for that genre. So it really depends what I want, what feelings I want to the reader to have from that game, and how I can use illustrations to help achieve that, right? So I won't be able to illustrate everything, and it's a time thing too, right? I have to write, and if I had to write, illustrate, and do layout of everything, it's gonna take forever. So
Which part of your this complex job activity, which task you feel better with? The sketch, the lore design, the mechanics. Which are your favorites?
I think lore and mechanics are my favorite part. Like when I created Sharp Swords Sinister Spells, the goal was actually showcase layout and illustration skills, but I found out I really liked writing stuff, and that's what made me continue making games. Like I really like the creative part and just writing and make stuff up and testing mechanics and mixing things and making the game that I want to play, right?
Okay. Diogo, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us
Thank
today.
you for inviting me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. We can't wait to see what you will create at White Wolf, and we'll be keeping an eye on old school publishing too. You're welcome back anytime. Maybe next time you can tell us about your first White Wolf project.
Yeah. Maybe by the end of the year, I can come back and talk more about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we hope to see you in Lucca Comics and Games if you can.
Yeah. I will try. Yeah. When is that?
In end of October.
Oh yeah, I think we'll be there. I think
your colleagues and boss in Paradox came 2 years ago, I think so, because we have a local translator, publisher.
I believe we will be there. I believe there are plans for us to be there already. We already kind of discussed that.
That's wonderful news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're excited to see you there.
Okay, we will let you go. We let you go now.
Bye bye. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Ciao Diogo. Ciao Diogo.
Ciao.
Ciao ciao. Ciao Mauro.